Everybody wants to know the best guitar technique exercises to practice. Unfortunately, most of the time, guitar technique exercises end up being pretty useless and don't improve your technique at all.
No, that sucks.
The reason this happens is because guitar technique practice consists of two phases. In phase one, you don't need any exercises at all, and I'll show you what I mean in just a second. And in phase two, when you get that far, you get to be like John Wick, and anything can be your weapon. I mean, anything can be your exercise that makes you a better guitar player. This is Mike Filipov, guitar practice expert from PracticeGuitarNow.com, and today I'm going to tell you the full story behind guitar technique exercises, why they don't work for most people, and how to make sure that any exercise you practice ends up working for you.
You have my money taped to you. Okay, technically you do work for me.
There are only two things you need to do when you're looking to improve your guitar technique, and that's where my two phases of guitar technique practice come in. And in the first phase, what you need to do is learn the basic motion or motions your hands need to do to play the notes correctly. I'm going to play the first three notes on the low E string using my wrist. I'm going to move to the A string using my wrist, not the forearm, wrist, because it's a short enough distance where I can just make the string change using my wrist and play the three notes on the A string using my wrist as well. So I'm going to play the first 6 notes of the scale using my wrist. And the problem I have with just about any exercise you try to practice during this phase is unless you know exactly what the right motions are in picking hand, in the fretting hand, or in both hands, any exercise you practice isn't going to do you any good because all you're going to do is you're going to practice it with the exact same motions you already know. But that's not even the worst of it. Let's say the issue I'm trying to refine in my technique is excessive motion in my picking hand. I'm moving my pick way too much between notes. So let's say I go online and I find some picking hand single string accuracy exercise that sounds like this. Did you notice a problem in how I was practicing the exercise? I was watching my fretting hand the whole time, but I paid zero attention to what my pick was doing, but that's where my problem was. So I had to waste all this time finding the exercise, memorizing its notes, and then spending most of my mental bandwidth looking at my fretting hand just to make sure that my hand was making the position shifts correctly, and the whole time my main problem never got addressed.
That doesn't make sense.
And that's assuming I even know that my problem was excess picking motion and that I know at least that I'm supposed to focus on it. But if I don't know that, then all the time I spend finding and learning and practicing this exercise is a complete waste.
You blew it!
And that is the reason why guitarists who skip over phase one of their guitar technique training, they just keep repeating those same exercises with the same sloppy technique, same inefficiencies, same bad habits they've had for years, and that's why it doesn't work.
Jeez, I knew it.
And unfortunately, many great players who also teach guitar and try to explain to you what they do, they completely gloss over phase one of guitar technique training also. Instead, they jump right into showing you the exercises they practiced as if the exercise was the thing that made them better, but it's not.
So bullshit, all of it.
And most naturally talented guitar players simply instinctively figured out what the right motions are on their own, and they can't even imagine what it's like for somebody who is not them to not know what the right motions are. This is called curse of knowledge. It basically means that an expert at something very often can't even imagine what it's like for other people to not be experts at that thing. For example, they've done studies where two people would sit across from each other and one person would tap a famous melody, just the rhythm of the melody, on the table with his hand.
La 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 la.
And the second person had to guess what the melody was.
I feel pretty.
And even when the melodies were super simple and famous that everybody in the world knows, most people could not guess it just from hearing the rhythm. For example, did you know that this was Happy Birthday? I mean, maybe you did because I kind of gave it away by saying a famous melody everybody in the world would know, but in that study, most people could not guess melodies correctly. And the same thing happens when learning guitar technique from naturally talented guitar players. People who are naturally talented at technique don't even know how to explain this phase one of guitar technique training to you because they don't even know that these details exist, much less that they even matter. If you want to see specific examples of the motions you need to practice in phase one, fun, check out my other videos on picking hand and fretting hand mistakes to avoid in your technique if you want to play fast and clean. I go into much more detail about those things there. For now, let's move on to phase 2 of guitar technique training. Phase 2 is where you drill or apply the motion into as many guitar playing contexts as possible. Getting back to my earlier example about excessive picking hand motion, if and when I know that I need to just focus on making my picking hand motion efficient, and I sit there and practice just the motion, just with the right hand without even fretting any notes, and I make sure that my pick is not moving any more than it needs to, and let's say I've gotten that down, now for phase 2, I can take literally anything, a scale, some part of an Yngwie solo, any guitar riff, anything. And as long as I focus on maintaining that efficiency in my picking hand, I'm going to be training it in a variety of guitar playing contexts, and I'm going to get better. So getting back to the earlier example, in phase 2, this same exact exercise that I've mocked just a few moments ago can be very effective, because once I've done my homework and I've refined my picking hand motion, even if I'm looking at my fretting hand most of the time, I can still, at the back of my mind, focus on maintaining that efficiency in my picking hand, and now I'm going to get better from it. And the good news is you don't have to practice phase 1 for weeks or months or years before you move on to phase 2. It doesn't matter how many bad habits you currently have or how much you need to refine in your technique. You can practice phase 1 and phase 2 very often in the same day, just an alternation. You do 5 minutes of phase 1 practice where you're just focused on refining the motion, and then you do 2 or 3 minutes of phase 2 practice where you take any drill, literally, like I said, anything, and drill that motion in that context. After 5 minutes, take 10 seconds of a break to clear your head, then you go back to phase 1 practice, refine that motion a little bit more, then you pull out a different exercise and you practice that motion in a different context, and you do that over and over again for, let's say, an hour, and over the course of an hour, you will have made a lot of progress with literally any exercise. So use this thought process when you're refining your technique and when you're looking for exercises to work on, and you will go far. And if you want some more help with making your guitar practice time pay off, hit the link below. I'm going to show you 5 of my biggest guitar playing progress accelerators that I've discovered over almost 20 years of playing and teaching guitar. And the less time you have to practice today, the more important it is for you to know and do these things, because they're going to maximize the results per minute you're able to squeeze out of whatever practice time you've got to spend with your guitar. So check out the link below. It's free. Enter your email address and I'll show it to you. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, hit the bell so you're notified every time I upload new videos just like this for you. This is Mike Filipov, guitar practice expert from PracticeGuitarNow.com. I'll see you next time.